Can I zoom in? Can you see now? Okay. So when you code and you want to put something in quotes, you need 2. You don't want to put an extra one at the end because that will mess up what's coming next. It's expecting another one after limit. So if you do it again, you can see that we're going to, if you look down where it says add pass, which is a SQL thing for those who haven't taken database yet, terrible class. It doesn't matter. So then we put that in, we add the tag, and limit goes dark, which is bad. You can see the error happening again. Bad, bad, bad. This is bad. What's the main issue that we see with that is that we could put anything in there and it would mess it up. So if we put tag or 1 equals 1 dash dash, who knows what that means? Comment. What does that mean? Comment in SQL. It is. Sure. I don't know. It means yes. So basically now we have all the information for the bank account. It's sick. So that's how you hack. Don't do it in real life. That's bad. Tenchi, don't put me hacking a bank online. Gosh, oh my gosh, on Snapchat. Yeah, so that's SQL injection. It's pretty bad. We don't like to see it, but it is the most common thing we do see in the real world. So how do we avoid this? How do we stop it from happening? Parameterized statements or queries is what we see. So up here you can see email is in between 2 quotes and ticks. And that's what we want to avoid because then the malicious hacker can put in that extra one at the end and mess everything up. So instead of doing it that way, you want to make sure you put a variable instead and add it in after. So you could do that. You can also do ROM. An ROM tool often means the developer will rarely have to use a SQL statement at all. They're not writing it themselves. The tool does it for them. You can also do an escape input. So instead of doing the 1 tag, you put 2. And this is treating it as a quote as a part of a string, not the end of a string. So it believes that it's already in there. And then also just sanitizing your inputs, making sure that dash 1 equals 1 dash dash isn't in there at all because that's clearly a red flag. So yeah, that's the first one. Next up, we got broken authentication. So this happens all the time. Sessions. Does everyone know what a session is after doing the past couple of weeks of web? It's how long that you're on this. So if you were to go to the library, log in, or if you go to the lab, such as Adriana did the other week, and log into my courses, and then you leave, and you want that session to time out eventually. If it doesn't, that session's still there, and Quentin can go in and Snapchat all of eBoard and embarrass fellow eBoard members. So we don't want that to happen. There's a lot of authentication issues that go on. One of them is when a hack happens and a lot of data gets released, sometimes people will put it on GitHub. We saw that with the Capital One breach recently. All of those creds are out there, and so someone's like, hey, yeah, I want to use these. I want to see if I can get in. They'll take that, all those creds, and they'll just start jamming them in there one after one after one. They'll usually have a script doing it. And really, the system should have a red flag saying, hey, don't do that. Don't put in 37 users at once. I know you're automated. An automated brute force attack when you're using Hydra, which you'll use in pen testing. Another great class. You'll see that you'll just go off of the 500 list and it will get in there. Dictionary attack force and poor session management, which I talked about a little bit earlier. So how do we stop this? Multi-factor authentication. We all love our Duo. No default creds. Obviously, make sure that's there. Weak password checks. We learned at WESIS that it is proven if you put some type of visual below a password, you'll be able to increase the user's password ability. So if you put a dancing dog that will dance faster when the dog has a good password in front of it, the person's more likely to do a password. And that's really the only way to do it besides just locking them out if it's not good enough. Limit login attempts, that way they can't do the credential stuffing, and having a user-side secure built-in session manager that generates a new random session ID with highly entropy after login. Session ID should not be in the URL, securely stored and invalidated after logout. Ideal and absolute timeouts. Sensitive data exposure. So this is basically a breach. This can happen through a man-in-the-middle attack, which is where a user sitting in between the website they want to and the person that they're attacking, collecting their username and password. Often that happens with phishing attacks. It can be done also by targeting the HTTP connection between the user and the website. Hijacking this connection lets the attacker act as a proxy and collect all the information that goes through. Stealing keys and taking clear text data off the server. We hate it when certain platforms save our passwords in plain text. We hate that. Please don't do that. Please stop. So yeah, how do we stop that? Delete data as soon as possible. You don't need my password from like 10 years ago, right? Use strong algorithms, protocols, and keys. Nick gave us lots of ways to do this. Please use strong things. Be good at math. I am not. Someone has to be. Good job, Laura. Encrypt all the data that's being secured with TLS, making sure that that works. You learn a lot about that in web. Enforce encryption using directives like HTTP, strict transport security, and disable caching that contains sensitive data. So if you don't know what a cache is, it remembers what was on the website recently. And so when it reloads, all that old data is still there. We don't want that. XML internal entities. So has anyone ever heard of OpenID? Yeah? Dan, explain to us what OpenID is. So one of those other things, Dan said it's a tag in XML that lets you put other things into it. One of these other things might be, have you guys ever tried to sign up for something and it says sign up using Facebook or sign up using Gmail? So that's kind of how this vulnerability can happen. So you can see it. So this little guy, this is Mal. If you guys were ever wondering what the red team malware looks like, it's him. He's really cool. He's here to hack, and he crafted a malicious XML packet that's here to attack Etsy passwords, which is where a lot of passwords are stored. So basically, he's going to go in on his server side and set up this trap with Etsy passwords, which you can see over there. And he's going to craft a URL that's malicious. And he's going to open the browser with the social media to find out the XML descriptor. And then during parsing, he's going to expand out the external entity reference and include the local user information, just as Mal hoped. The first part of the trap is sprung. So now the malware is there and the authentication process terminates. So when you do something like sign up with Facebook, it's waiting for Facebook to authenticate. It's not doing it itself. When he sticks this in here, it's standing in the middle and it's breaking that authentication. So there's an error that you can see down there. Oh my goodness. So yeah, now he's in there and he did it. So yeah, go to Hacksplain to figure out how to stop that. Cool. So how do you do that? You disable parsing inline DDTs and you limit permissions of your web server process. This will restrict any directories in the file system that can be accessed, and then less XML attacks can occur. Broken access control, so this is kind of a fun one. It's one that I kind of like. Authentication, authorization, permission checking. These are all things that should be done. You got to correctly identify the user. You got to make sure that they should not be able to perform stuff once they've authenticated. And evaluating the authorization at the point in time when the user attempts to perform an action. I skipped one. I definitely skipped one. Yeah. So broken access control, there's a really cool example for this one. This is based off of a true story. So broken access control happens when someone is in the website, even if they're supposed to be a part of it, they may not be, they shouldn't be at the level that they are at. So someone who gets to the admin shares, even though they're just a normal user, stuff like that, it can be really easy to do. And so this little guy Mal, our malware again, he decided to hack a website. He knew that the company was releasing stuff at the same URL, but they just changed the end of it every time. And so he kind of realized this pattern, and he was able to just type in that URL a couple of days before the monthly release of the product. I believe it was bank statements, and he was able to just plug it in, and all he needed to do was going through that. So by knowing that URL and being able to kind of predict it, he was able to just go in and get the quarterly report. So he got an edge over the investors. He started investing illegally. And then when they found him, he didn't matter because it was public information, and when the people caught them, I can't read any of this, when the people caught him, they were basically like, hey, that was really messed up of you to put the URL in, and he was like, hey man, I just learned how to read and then typed it in properly. And the people on the other side who weren't putting up access control on that website got in trouble, and they got sued at the end of the day, which is kind of cool. So definitely put up some access control while you're there, basically authenticating the people, putting in a password at the end of that URL, stuff like that. So yeah. Things you can do. You can do bug bounties. I know Facebook gave out an XML. It was an XML one for 33,000. Or you can do HackerOne. That's a lot of web vulnerabilities. Good way to make some money. You can also make your website secure if you follow these basic steps. And most of all, you can learn to present the other 5, just like I did 3 weeks ago and mainly forgot by the time we got here. But yeah, thank you. Make sure you present.
Awesome. Thank you, Shannon.
No problem. You got it.
I got it, yeah.
You got it.
Don't run away with the mic. All right, cue